Another episode of the Hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Here is your host, Dean Vasic.
G'day everyone and welcome back to the Hashtag Kangaroos podcast. I'm Dean Vasic and you can find me on X at Hashtag Kangas, Instagram Hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Joining me, as she does pretty much most Thursday nights, is my regular co-host Siobhan Rowe. Siobhan, it's great to have you back on the show. Now we are previewing our big game against the Pies tomorrow night, but we have to go back to last week. And what are your biggest takeaways from last week's game against Port Adelaide? And what did you make of the North's performance overall?
Hi, Dean. Great to come on as always and talk a bit of footy, which is at the moment it's a strange feeling. We were just saying to off air a little bit. I don't know how to really feel at the moment. I feel like maybe after the Port Adelaide game, I was more upset than I expected to be. I think just for where we're at as a group. I know that we're sitting higher on the ladder than we've been for a long time. We've got 8 wins under our belt, but I'm more confused than ever around some of the development of our players, some of the game plan, and just the way we're playing. I think since maybe around the GWS game, the brand of footy just doesn't seem to be the same. A lot of players are lacking in form and confidence, and I really felt like that game was there to be won. We had a great third quarter, got ourselves back into the contest when it felt like the game was slipping away in the second. But again, just couldn't capitalize. And we know the defense is it's a disaster, if you want me to be really honest. But I just feel as though the forward line sort of lost its spark. And there were parts of that game where I thought the midfield got their pants pulled down by two individuals in Horne-Francis and Butters. And it sort of feels like we're getting beaten by ourselves a bit at the moment and being beaten by what we know. And I think it's just frustrating because it feels like we're still in this zone of not making the step that we should have as a footy club. And I mean, I was very disappointed after the Port game and felt as though I was thinking to myself, well, with the Gold Coast win, yes, that was probably a fantastic achievement that we've had this year. And but our current form line doesn't suggest so. And I guess we played pretty crappy for 2.5 quarters of that game. And we've had those 3 wins in a row, but they never felt really euphoric.
No.
The round 1 win against Port was great at the time, but it just seems as though I've questioned a lot about how much progress we have made and where we should be at. And I guess for a club that's had such limited success like us, maybe I'm, being a little harsh and a little dramatic, but it just feels as though this group needs to start taking their opportunities like they had against Port Adelaide. I mean, they were there for the taking. The opportunity to break the Adelaide Oval hoodoo was there, and they couldn't get the job done. And I think the most disappointing part was in the last quarter. We scored 1 behind, and Port ended up running away 21-point winners after it was a scores level at 3/4 time. And it just felt as though in that last quarter there were so many big moments that players that should now be willing and able to take those just didn't. And I guess it's one game out of the year, but it's given me a lot to think about around where we are at as a group. I think tomorrow night, it's Friday Night Lights. It's against the Pies. It looks like it's going to be a sellout crowd. Will tell us a lot about this group. I just fear as though I mentioned the pod a few times to you, Dean, that the back end of the year for us seems to be a nightmare. I mean, even if you think back to last year, we lost that game to Geelong by over 100 points and then got absolutely thumped by Hawthorn. And we've got some challenging games on the way home. And I guess in my mind, I thought to myself, if we're not beating Port Adelaide, albeit it was in Adelaide and they are a better side than what they showed in round 1, I fear for what the rest of the year looks like. And I really don't want to not have a win or have another great performance on the way home in this season, because I think it would just completely tarnish the good work that we've done. That's probably a negative perspective on it, but it's kind of how I'm feeling a little bit at the moment with this group. I'm confused by a lot of things too. I'm sure we'll delve more into it. And sorry for this very long intro to the pod. But I'm confused by some of the positional sort of decisions that's going on. I mean, Will Dawson's not going to be playing against Collingwood, but I feel like he's been quite harshly done by in terms of playing him 9% game time, I think it was, and playing him in the ruck when we've drafted him as a key position player, and we're crying out for that. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We've brought in Whitlock, but we'll see where he plays. I just think at the moment, that team cohesion that we had at the start of the year just doesn't look likely. That moment, I think for me, that summed it up perfectly was Colby McKercher getting run down by 3 Port Adelaide players in the last quarter. And I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't angry at that. I thought it said more about the fact that he was the only one that was trying to take the game on.
Yeah.
And he was caught because no one else was actually running with him or running for him. So I think that said a lot about where we're at as a group. And I've said for a little while that I felt as though once that Freo game happened, which we all know was just a complete disaster, they have very much gone back into their shells. And I think that showed in the last quarter when the game was on the line. They weren't willing to take the game on except for 1 or 2 players out there. And if we play like that on Friday night, then, we'll see what the result is. But I think with this group in particular, if they're not daring, then we're getting absolutely nowhere. And that was shown pretty clearly in the lackluster score that we put on the board as well. I mean, I'm a little worried about the fact that we can't score. And Clarkson keeps referring to the fact that we're keeping teams under 100 points, but it's no use when we're barely scoring ourselves. So a bit to work with here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think we had minus 13 metres gain through handball in the first half. And the game has become a lot about, being proactive with your handball, moving the ball forward. And we just didn't do that. David King was very vocal, and I will talk about him a little bit in a second and about what he said on First Crack the other night. But, the game's very much about transitioning the ball from defensive 50 with speed. We just don't have that. We rely too much on Colby McKercher to do that, and he is very good at that. But he sometimes gets a handball and he runs to the wrong side. David King said, "I'm sick of seeing this bloke just run to his right side every time he gets a handball, and he's got to try and cut inside back on his left. And generally speaking, he stops, turns around, and then goes backwards again." The reason he got run down, I think the one you talked about, by 3 players, is because he was running towards his right side, and then he tried to straighten himself up, and he got swarmed.
Yeah.
But it's not on him all the time as well. This is coaching as well. I prefer him behind the ball. I think he needs to play behind the ball. I'm sick of him getting the handball where he's coming from the forward half and then running behind in circles, which forces him to go out wide and go sideways rather than getting the ball from behind, and then he could run through the middle and break a line through that way. So, and like I said, a lot of transitions, a lot of teams are relying on defensive 50 transitions for scores. Brisbane have gone away. They've even come out and said they've gone away from the way they've played and won their premierships, realising this is the way the game's going.
Yeah.
And they're second in the last 2 weeks, small sample size, from defensive 50 transition to scores inside 50. So that's something we've got to work on. I know you mentioned defence, and people will sort of say, oh, we haven't been conceding much. But we haven't been creating anything out of there as well. That's where the biggest problem is with the defence.
Yeah.
They're not challenging the opposition. It's very slow ball movement. It's backwards, it's sideways, and then long kicks down the line. And if you want to take steps forward, it's all good and well playing like that against Essendon and Richmond. They're not going to hurt you. But if you want to take steps forward against good teams, then you've got to be proactive in your approach. And we're just not seeing it enough, are we, Siobhan?
No, and that's the part that's really confusing is we've gone away from that brand of footy that has served us so well. And I think that's where we actually got into the position that we were at the start of the year. And maybe it's a Marvel thing. It'll be interesting to see how we go against the Pies. And I know that it's not Collingwood's favourite place to play, and we clearly love it. But it's a real strange one. And you mentioned before teams evolving and changing even throughout the season. And I guess that's what differentiates the great clubs to the good clubs to the poor clubs, in that sometimes it takes, probably like seasons to teach a young group how to play a certain game style or all of that. And I guess the more experience they have with each other and playing together, you can mold and change that throughout the year, which is why Brisbane are able to adapt to that and really turn their fortunes around in the season. But Do you feel as though, and I'm sure we'll get to this throughout the pod, but it's potentially an issue with an outdated kind of game style and one where maybe it hasn't quite gone with the modern game? Um, and this is, I guess, opens the discussion on Clarkson, and I guess what we've heard throughout the week a little bit around his contract extension, and it is an interesting topic of conversation because next year is his final year really at North if we don't extend it, and the noise will be loud throughout the whole year next year if we don't look at doing it maybe this year. I'm not sure, but I just think maybe I don't know, it's hard to say, but it might be a matter of that the game might have maybe moved in a different way and we haven't quite gone with it. But it also might be the cattle and the particular style of game that he's implemented so that we aren't conceding big scores and it's become a bit more dour. I don't know. I'm not an expert in it, but it just seems that we've gone away from what made us great at the start of the year, and that's why we look like a different footy side.
Yeah, I think that it's almost like the Fremantle game has scarred him. I've mentioned this a number of times over the weeks. That first quarter wasn't as bad as what the scoreline suggested. I think we're only 2 goals down, and we made some mistakes. I understand that, and just through poor skill errors. But that happens. We look like we're going to put on a big score, like not a big score, but we would have kicked 10 plus goals. And all of a sudden, the message seems to be then is just play it safe, don't make mistakes. And then the last few weeks, they've gone ultra defensive with their approach and not been proactive at all, really. I mean, outside of, anytime McKercher runs behind the ball, just give the ball to him and he can run and create. And it's just putting too much pressure on the kid. We got to get 3 or 4 players that can do that. I thought Josh Goda was growing in the last 2 weeks, and we will talk about him soon through selection. But Riley Hardiman can certainly give plenty of drive from behind the ball. Luke Parker has been very good. He has turned it over a fair bit, but he's quite good. We just want to see a little bit more dare in the game and a bit more speed behind the ball. We understand that teams set up pretty well this day and age, but when we do get an intercept mark, we seem to just slow the ball down. It's just like, stop, let's just kick it sideways, and then all right, I'll go back, and then we'll kick it long down the line. So now you did talk about Alistair Clarkson, and I'm very interested to get your thoughts on the topic that's generating plenty of discussion amongst North Melbourne supporters at the moment. That's the future of Alistair Clarkson. Clarko has indicated he'd like to continue behind his current deal, and all the noise coming out of Arden Street suggests an extension could be on the table at the end of the season. I mentioned David King has been particularly vocal in saying North shouldn't be rushing into an extension just yet. His argument is that there hasn't been enough growth, and that much of the improvement we've seen has come from the club's high-end draft picks. Obviously talking about Shees, LDU, Finn O'Sullivan, players like that, rather than naturally developing from any obvious tactical or coaching masterstroke. He also questioned whether the method stands up against the better teams in the competition. If the season finished right now, Siobhan, would you be comfortable extending Clarkson's contract, or do you think the club should wait and see more evidence that North is heading in the right direction before making any commitment?
I probably agree with the latter. And I'm definitely not saying that we should just completely write him off. And I think the thing is at the moment too, you've got Essendon looking for a coach, Carlton looking for a coach. And it just depends the options and opportunities that are out there. I mean, if it was someone like John Longmire or Adam Simpson, I would be potentially pricking my ears up a little more than I would to someone like Josh Fraser. And I don't, no disrespect to him because he's set the world on fire.
He's done a great job,
but I think for where we're at, someone like one of those two, maybe because they're old shin boners as well, it just means a little bit more. I don't know, but I'd be giving it some thought. I don't feel the need to rush into doing anything silly like signing him up before the end of next year rolls around. Now, I understand they might not want to do that because it'll create noise, it'll create drama around a club that probably doesn't need it. We just probably need a bit more quietness. I will say this, though. I think Clarkson's reign so far, barring the disruption with Ratton coming in as interim coach and sort of the unfortunate loss of him throughout the initial years of his tenure, he has provided stability. He's provided a familiar face, experience, a steady hand when we needed it the most. That's an absolute positive. And whether or not they want to continue down that path of stability, but at the same time, it just depends on how we finish this year and how we start next year. Because the expectation has risen on the group, and as it bloody should. We as supporters, and I'm not trying to make it just a supporter issue, but we've suffered a lot throughout the last sort of 8-9 year block. And personally, I think that this year we have improved. There's no doubt about that. But the next step next year should undoubtedly be aiming for the top 10. And that's with the competition. It's clearly a very even competition, but the teams that we've beaten recently are in the same boat that we were 5 years ago. So it's sort of like, well, we should be progressing past some of these teams. So I think until we get more evidence that we have progressed as a group and we're growing as a group by taking big scalps and cementing the game plan and seeing more from our players, I wouldn't be pulling any triggers at this point. We've got a historic ability to go early on things. I mean, we were just having a laugh before about sort of some of the previous decisions that we've made around signing up players like Zach Fisher for 5 years and doing all of that. And I personally don't think that clubs are banging down the door for Alistair Clarkson at the moment. And not just that, but I think that, there just needs to be a bit more of a sample size of what he's had his opportunity to get the stability of the club down pat and the environment right. And it's time for results now. And we'll see how that plays out. But I'd be surprised and a little disheartened as a member and a supporter of the club if they pull the trigger this early. Are you along the same lines as me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I've seen enough to suggest that he needs extra commitment, especially when you see, you mentioned other teams that have gone past us. Melbourne, they got rid of Petrarca and Oliver in off season. It sort of felt like, well, they're going to rebuild. Obviously, having Max Gawn helps in a ruck. He's still the number one ruckman in the competition at 34 years old. But they seem to have gone past us. They started the rebuild. They won a premiership not long ago and been quite competitive after those years. And they've gone past us already. Hawthorn started 5 years after us and 5 years ahead of us at the moment. You'd probably have to think. Josh Fraser has come in, certainly put forward a proactive approach. Some players look refreshed. And you never know. Look, I'm not saying Clarkson's finished or anything like that, but sometimes the game just does go past you and you're left behind. It happens to everyone, and it's a young man's game at the end of the day. Look, whether he's probably, I don't know if he's getting much help in the box next to him, or anything like that. But there's got to be more. I want to see more evidence that we are taking, that we are going forward, and I probably just don't have that at the moment. And he can say what he wants, and it might affect recruiting or players coming to the club if they feel like there's a bit of instability with a coach. I don't think that's true necessarily. I mean, if Darcy Wilson's got a choice between us and Geelong, I think, and it's the same offer, they're going to pick Geelong at the end of the day. Whether Clarkson's got a 5-year contract ahead of him, or Chris Scott, or whatever it is. So generally speaking, these players will pick what's best option for them and go to success. And Geelong have been more successful and look like they're going to be more successful if you have to take a guess for the next 5 years. So I don't think that's a case. And sometimes coaches have to be uncomfortable. But my concern is, Siobhan, if he goes in uncontracted next year, he's going to lean more on the veterans more than ever, which is going to leave more kids behind as well. You'll probably see Hardiman, Goda, Cooper Harvey all play reserves, while he's going to, all right, I've got to play Luke McDonald, I'll get Griffin Logue back in, all these veterans who are showing us where they're at right now. So that's the concern if you do go in with him uncontracted next year. So, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't give him any more than 12 months extension at the moment. I'd say, oh, here, have another 12 months, and we'll see how we go next year. And if it's not working, it's up to you if you want to leave, or we'll. But if it is working, then we'll go a longer term deal. So, yeah, it's I'm a bit on the fence on it. That's for sure,
Yeah.
Siobhan.
Dean, do you feel as though the job that he took on was bigger than all of us maybe had anticipated? Now, I know there was never a form of like mass exodus or everyone was unhappy, but do you think the roots of our depression, if you want to call it that we experienced, as a footy club was just the river ran, deeper and farther than we had thought, and this is finally just the start of now the flowers blooming of him coming in? Like, was it worse than we had imagined? Is that a fair enough assessment of it, or do you think there's more to it?
He hasn't had any luck with certain things that have gone on. The week he started, Hawthorn sort of all came out with the racism scandal, which obviously took a toll on him for at least that first year and a half, maybe even close to 2 years. It really took a toll on him mentally and physically by the looks of it. He's had a number one draft pick go back home after a year. He's had Taron Thomas, who was going to be a really important player for us. Was it last year? I think it was. He was going to be an important player. He's a unique player. He's got that line breaking ability, line breaking speed, like a Colin McKercher. And that's the type of player that's suited to this modern game as well. Unfortunately, he screwed up. Ben Cunnington was almost the best player in the competition as far as a midfielder goes. He would have been nice to have him before he got the cancer diagnosis. By the time he got there, Ben Cunnington, unfortunately, was probably done as an AFL footballer. And that's fair enough. So, look, these aren't excuses. These are actual facts. So he's had a lot go against him since he's come to the club. But that's, that's just part and parcel, isn't it, Siobhan? Look, I'd probably hold, to be honest with you. And if he's not happy with that, then, no individual is bigger than the club.
Do you feel as though there'd be a backlash from the players if something like not signing him on past next year was to happen? Do you think that they would be going, well, we finally got a sense of stability, we've got this, 4-time premiership coach? Do you think that would seep into their minds at all?
I'm sure there's some players that aren't happy with him as well, Siobhan. And there's probably some players that aren't getting a game or scraping in and getting a game that are probably pretty unhappy as well. So it's, I remember Dennis Pagan once said, he goes, you're going to have 10 players happy, 5 players are always going to be unhappy, and then the status quo changes. And I think that's the case. For every 10 players that are happy, 5 players won't be happy. And that's just human nature. I've been in situations like that. I remember one time I made 70 runs in a game, and then I got dropped the next week. I went to train and they dropped me and their reasoning was it's a one-dayer. You're not a hitter. For a bloke that came in and trained the one day on a Thursday, and that pissed me off. And that's just human nature. Like, I'm sure Riley Hardeman's not sitting there in the reserves thinking, I'm loving playing reserves while Charlie Spargo turns the ball over every 2 minutes, or something like that. I'm sure Cooper Harvey, probably halfway through for half the year, thought this is bullshit as well. So it's just human nature that I don't think there's. They can talk what they want, but there's not going to be 40 players ever happy on the list, whether the coach has got a year left on his contract or 10 years left on his contract. So there might be some players that'll be happy to see the back of him, Sean.
It's true. It's a yin and yang, isn't it? It's like life, isn't it? You're never going to make anyone happy all the time, and you're not going to make anyone unhappy all the time either. So it's an interesting discussion, and it's more interesting to me that if at the start of the year you'd said to me we're having a conversation about potentially not re-signing Clarkson for 28, and we'd have 8 wins on the board and be sitting 11th on the ladder, I would probably be laughing at you. So that's the funny thing about expectation and the way the season's unfolded, isn't it? And I guess there is another 6 rounds left in the year, or 7 rounds left in the year, where we are able to show our wares a bit more, but just felt as though on the weekend it was just disappointing. Not doomsday, and at the time it felt a little bit like that, but the last quarter, I think for me this year, Dean, what I've loved watching about North is that we've got a bit of spirit back. and none more was against the Gold Coast when we just had the belief we could win. And it just felt as though in that last quarter they didn't have the belief that they could win. And that's what was probably the saddest part to me, was that they've done all this great work this year, but it was like barring one or two of them that probably thought that we were a chance. They just were resigned to the fact they were going to lose another game there. I tell you, the day that we win at Adelaide Oval will be, well, I'm telling you, I'm going to have to get some fireworks or something going. It's going to be a great
Yeah,
day.
I'll probably die the next day or something like that. So, yeah, that'll be the end of me. But, look, I think the women's team have won there a few times, so I'll take that as a W. Yeah, look, as soon as Port Adelaide challenged us in intensity in that last quarter, we kind of folded. Our pressure rating was well over 200 in that third quarter, whereas Port Adelaide was still 150, 160. They were like in cruise control. And also last quarter, they lifted their intensity and we couldn't match them. And, I think, what do we have, 3 or 4 inside 50s in the last, where they had 20. So, yeah, we had no answers. Also, unfortunately, George Wardlaw suffered another hamstring injury, and I think that's around the 5th one since arriving at North Melbourne. For someone who's only a few years into his AFL career, they don't seem to be getting this right. The frustrating part is the club has been managing him all season. His time on ground has been monitored around 60, 65%. They've been very careful with his workload, and yet here we are again with another soft tissue injury. At some point, you have to ask the question, are they getting this right, Sean?
It's a little heartbreaking. I mean, to his credit, he has had quite a good run at it without one. And just the way he plays, he's a bulldozer. So I think he is more predisposed to those type of injuries and concussions like we've seen in the past. And I'm very thankful it's not another one of those. But as a junior, I mean, I remember when he got drafted, speaking on another podcast about the fact that he had those run of hamstring injuries. And I think once you have that predisposition to those soft tissues, it's almost a guarantee you're going to get another one. I know that's just very unfortunate, but it's his makeup, his build. And I don't think we'd ever want him to change his game just to protect that injury or that part of his body. But it just hurts a lot, especially with finals still a potential. And just, I think just the team at the moment is a little lackluster, and he's just a point of difference. He's not a high possession player, but every possession he gets, every chase, every tackle, every bump lifts the team in a way that we don't have another player on the side other than I'm sure we'll discuss him a little later in the pod, but other than Cam Zurhaar, who this year seems to be a little lost. I don't think anyone else really brings that spirit to the team in that form. So he'll be very sorely missed. And with Tom Powell injured again too, Dean, we don't necessarily have a like-for-like mid to come in to replace him. But it's just really sad for him, because imagine how frustrating it is for him compared to us supporters that, love him. And, I don't know what the solution is. It's up to Kevin White, isn't it? But it does feel as though maybe we haven't quite got it right. They're saying 3 to 4 weeks, but I think the club, if finals are ruled out, will probably maybe go on the conservative side and just rest him up. And the last thing we'd want is another significant one towards the back end of the year.
He's the heart and soul of a football club. He reminds me of Anthony Stevens so much, just the way he approaches each contest. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's actually a Shimboner. The way he plays, the way he moves around. It's really tough. Like, he's almost one of the most important players we've got in that regard, because we don't have many hard-edged players like that in our team that can really set the tone. So, he's a big loss. And, for a player that's, gets in 60, 65% game time on ground, I thought the club were pretty good with that in managing his workload. So, to get another soft tissue injury right now, especially the last quarter, just over lunched a little bit. It's a bit disheartening, that's for sure. So, look, I mean, instead they've been extra cautious for 3 or 4 weeks, so it might be generally just a 1 or 2 week one, but they're probably just going to give another week or two, work on a few things, build the strength up, because that's all you can do at the end of the day. You can't do much about the past, Sean. You just got to move forward, and hopefully you cross your fingers, toes, whatever you can, and he doesn't. He can get through games. It is his first one for a long time, so
Yeah, I think he had 7 in a row games in the
yeah,
AFL
that's
side.
right. So I guess that's a positive at the end of the day. And maybe as he gets a bit older and builds more strength, and gets a bit more core strength as well, it might work a lot better for him. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see with bated breath, that's for sure. But we head to Marvel Stadium to take on Collingwood under the bright lights. It's only a 5-day break after a tough game against Port Adelaide, so recovery this week would have been crucial. Any concerns with only a 5-day break and a few veterans playing on a short turnaround? They didn't drop any of the like Darlings or Luke Parkers. They're playing them through, and quite happy to go with those boys.
It's a great point. I really thought this would have been the opportunity to do so. Maybe you're right. Maybe Clarkson does have his trusty veterans he likes to go to when the heat's on a little bit. And that might be what's happened here. I mean, I am a little bit concerned. 5-day break, a lot of pressure. I think. I don't know if the club's feeling it, but as a supporter base, I feel like people want a response. And that's what I think we've done well at times, is that we've responded to a performance where I'll happily say I think the last quarter was piss poor. So I'd be hopeful they'd come out with a different attitude in quarter one. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, yeah, I thought it was an opportunity to do so, with rest some of those players, but they could come out and prove us completely wrong.
Yeah, I thought. Look, I understand. They're looking up. They want to sort of give themselves the best chance to win because they certainly see themselves. They could potentially, if they win this, they go back to the top 10. So they want to go to the veterans. They want to play Jack Darlings. They really want to win. They want to give themselves the best chance to win. So I can understand that. Would have been nice to see how we go with those players. Because Jack Darling's 34, Luke Parker's 33. Caleb Daniels 30 odd. You could have played a couple of young guys. Might have just refreshed the squad a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think we spoke off air. We don't have too much depth either, so maybe they don't. They don't want to. Test the depth against a team that's around a mark as well. So
what's interesting to me is that we've barely had any injuries this year, Dean, besides Wardlaw going down and obviously Jacko Archer with his ACL and Threadgold, who I think would be playing in this team if he was fit and well. Besides those sorts of injuries, I guess we haven't been hit hard through any key players, and most other clubs in the AFL do have not an injury crisis, but certainly some of their key players out over the course of the year, and we've been lucky with that for a while. I mean, we've made some good changes and some good decisions here, I think, but in the same breath, I felt as though the last few weeks, especially last week, I think it stood out like a sore thumb. We've just been a little bit uneven, a little bit top heavy. I still don't think the 3 ruck, it's not happening this week, was the right way to go, because maybe in that last quarter we ran out of legs because we just were too tall and probably a bit too compromised in that area. So yeah, I'm glad we've made a few wise choices to bring in some run and experienced youth, with Paul Curtis coming back. Everyone can smile a little bit. He's a very welcome inclusion, especially in a forward line that's struggling to score and be functioning at the moment. So that's a big bonus. So I like some of the changes that we've made, and I think it's less one-dimensional.
Yeah, we'll go through the changes now. Like in Hardiman, Zach Bench, Paul Curtis, and Matt Whitlock for his first game of the year. Out of the team goes Josh Goda, managed, which is understandable. They've probably been a bit scared with George Wardlaw doing a soft tissue injury, so they probably thought, 5-day turnaround. We don't want to risk anything with him, so I understand that. George Wardlaw injured. Will Dawson must be tired after his 26% time on ground last week, so he's been omitted. They should have put managed against his name. That would have been good for a laugh. Jacob Stanty managed. So the 6 possessions last week must have really taken a toll on him as well. So Interesting changes. The probably most interesting one is for me is Whitlock. We talked off there. I don't know what his role is going to be this week. We talked about the
Big.
forward line. You've got Darling, Larkey, Trembath as your three talls. Cameron Zerha, Paul Curtis, Zach Bench, Charlie Spargo. So that's your forward seven. Um, I don't know unless he's going to play and just rotate between Darling, Larkey, Trembath
No.
and so they can keep three talls on the ground all times, which I don't really like because he's going to be on and off the ground all the time. So he's probably the player this week that's going to get 25% game time. I certainly hope that's not true. Hopefully he gets a lot more than that. But that's the one that confuses me the most, Siobhan. What about yourself?
I agree with that somewhat because I think they've got this obsession with chopping Sherry out with Trembath and another tall, which, I mean, I don't know whether or not you want to raise the elephant in the room at the moment, but I thought Sherry's colours were significantly lowered against Sweet and the other ruckman for Port last week, Darcy Cameron this week. So we'll see how he goes.
I think that's a good matchup for him, Darcy Cameron, so he can do the CBAs this week.
Yep, so that's why it probably leaves a little bit more confusing as to why they've gone down the path of another tall again. But maybe Whitlock's playing alongside Core in the back line. I hope that's the case because I personally think Matt Whitlock's future is as a defender. So we will see how he goes, but he's been playing predominantly as a forward. So it's a little sort of confusing what the role will look like for him and how that'll all play out. But yeah, it will be interesting because the forward line's got a boost there with Curtis and Bench. I think they are. No offense to Jacob Constanti, but I think Zach Bench looks more threatening towards goal. So excited to see him get a run at it, and Curtis is a welcome addition. I guess I'll never get my dream of watching Goda and Hardiman run around together. I understand.
You'll have to wait another week at least, Siobhan. So yeah.
But I do understand why they've managed Goda there. But the way that we structure up with our keys and our tools will be a very interesting talking point for us.
No, it definitely will be. So yeah, look, I'm not sure on Whitlock one. What the thinking there is. You mentioned that he might play in the back line. He hasn't played in the back line at all in a VFL. So that's you got to get reps if you want to build muscle. You get reps. You go to the gym. You're not going to just all of a sudden go back to the back line. All of a sudden you become the player that we hope you drafted and you're dominating the back line when you haven't been playing there at all. So he's learned his craft as a forward, like almost as a Nick Larkey mould, pushing up the ground, and kicking a few goals here and there without really dominating the VFL. I'm not too sure because a couple of days ago, David King questioned the recruiting on him and asked where is he, and then all of a sudden he gets picked. So it's interesting. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but you'd hope they're not listening to David King too much on that, and they just picked him on merit. But
do you think that maybe the performance? I mean, this might be even more left of field, but the performance of his brother had anything to do with maybe bringing him in to the senior team?
You'd hope not.
Yeah.
I don't think his brother dominated too much. He got a down the field free kick. He certainly shows a bit.
Yep.
His brother, but he didn't dominate. He got a down the field free kick. I thought Comben, played pretty well on him and probably had the honours when you really think about it.
Yeah.
But
getting some help for Charlie Comben down there a little bit at the moment, isn't it? Because I thought he was probably one of the best against Port, but doesn't seem to have many partners in crime.
No, he does not. No, definitely doesn't. We're relying a lot on him at the moment. It's good to see Cooper Harvey keep his spot in the team as well. He's always a week by week.
He's grown on you, hasn't he? I remember you weren't sure, but I feel like you've.
I've always rated him, but I always rate him as a forward. I wasn't sure about him as a defender, but it's certainly come around on him as a defender, and hopefully they continue to pick him. But I always worry that one bad performance is out of the team, especially with Goda probably back next week. If he doesn't play up to a good standard this week, then he's probably out because they want to keep Hardiman in. So, it's going to be That's going to be interesting. Interesting to see Colby McKercher named on the halfback flank for this week in the team news. But I'm not going to read too much into it. Caleb Daniels been named a centre half back. So, yeah, I can't read too much into that. So, yeah, just going through, like, I put the question out on X and Instagram, and a lot of people are probably questioning. Well, they're happy with the team changes, and fair enough. They're probably questioning the Charlie Spargo, how he's probably getting a game. Are you on? Do you think, even some people have said, I would have dropped Charlie Spargo ahead of Costanti?
Yep.
Yeah, where are you on that? He wasn't brilliant last week, was he?
No, but I think he's a mainstay. I'll be brutally honest. I don't see a way, if he hasn't been by now, a world where he's not playing in the side. Weird thing to say, but he must be doing something out there that we're unaware of. Like if it's a leadership, like a line management, I don't know. But his output alone can't be waste in the team, because I agree somewhat that I'd probably have kept Constanti ahead of him. I thought at times in the last quarter, and this is going to sound very harsh, but he was the core reason why we didn't score. So he had made some, sure, but you can't question his endeavour, but his execution at times is incredibly poor. And if we're moving forward as a football side, I don't think we can be relying on Charlie Spargo to be the hero, the match winner for us in the forward half. I understand everyone needs to play their role, but unless, well, personally, I thought maybe Constanti would be looking after Dacos when he goes to half back. So maybe that'll be Spargo's role this week. I don't know, but but there must be something going on that we're not aware of, because on output alone, he probably shouldn't be playing.
He can follow a system. I think that's why they like him, because he does follow a system. Like defensively, he does run back hard. If you ask him to do something with the football, generally he won't do it. He'll probably do the opposite. But yeah, they seem to like him, that he follows a system. I've been quite negative of his body language towards his teammates a lot of the time. But that sort of seems to have been in check lately. Maybe he's been humbled by his own admission that he's probably turning the ball over a fair bit.
Yep.
So maybe he's just been humbled a little bit. But yeah, look, his body language, it was pretty ordinary there for a few weeks, and I had big question marks about him in that regard. At least that's been better probably the last 3 weeks. I'll give him that. And yeah, I mean, we'd like to have a small forward that can actually be damaging on a scoreboard as well, and we just don't get that. We don't get midfielders kicking goals. We don't get our small forwards kicking goals. Last week we had our 3 goals came from the key forwards. The rest came from midfielders. Like Darling kicked 2, Nick Larkey kicked 1. It's not enough. It's not good enough from the forward 7. Hopefully Paul Curtis can help that this week. Cameron Zerhard didn't do much going back forward.
He's a worry.
And we dropped Zane Duursma. A few people have come in, Siobhan, and have probably gone a little bit hard, saying maybe Zerha and Nick Larkey, one of them or both of them, are pretty lucky to be getting regular games each week. What are your thoughts on them right now? Because they've hardly been inspiring, have they?
I've never been more disappointed in anyone for a while than I was with Nick Larkey on the weekend. I think I got quite cross when he dropped a simple chest mark and then gave away a stupid 50-meter penalty, and then had, I think it was Parker kind of go up and say enough. I think I understand he's frustrated. He's not in great form. The side's not necessarily in great form. There were a few occasions as well, which I was ready to rip my hair out, where the lack of connection between himself and LDU. And if LDU listens to this podcast, please, mate, just have a ping yourself. Just don't be selfish. You've got the talent and the skill to dob them, because on multiple occasions, the connection with Larkey was just, they'd never seen each other before. And I think that says a lot about where Larkey's at the moment. And it's not for I don't imagine a world where he's not playing, especially because he's also captain of the side, but has to raise questions whether or not at the moment the Poison Chalice is being captain of the Kangas, because Simpkins had a great year, and he was carrying the burden of that for a while, and same with McDonald. But it's frustrating to see, because your captain needs to stand up in big moments, and they need to be the one to not just keep a level head, but put the others in check. And he let himself down on both of those fronts on the weekend, and has for a little while. I'm sure he's aware of all this and is working through it. But when we rely so heavily on him to score, and I think Trembath's been down a little bit the last few weeks since the game against Richmond as well. And I think maybe it's time to put a little bit of more pressure on him to help out Nick Larkey as well, because I find when Trembath's not kicking goals and Larkey's not kicking goals, we just look very poor, which I guess if any side, their two main keys aren't kicking goals, then, that they won't be scoring as much. But his sidekick in Zerha, it was his perfect opportunity on the weekend to go back into the forward line and make an impact, and he hasn't. And if you want my personal opinion, I think he has done nothing for majority of the year, and he got lucky that Clarkson was willing to put him down back to maybe give him a bit of grace. But I really thought that he would have an impact going back up forward, and he couldn't have, been more unseen. So this is his opportunity to rectify that. There's only so many bumps and half-assed chases that you can make before you get exposed. And I think maybe people are waking up to the fact that he might just be a little bit too complacent. I think Cam's a funny one, because I don't know about you, Dean, but I always thought that he would be someone that would progressively move potentially in a part-time forward role like a De Goey, and it never happened. And he's kind of now even stagnated in the position of just being a forward. So it kind of depends what he wants to do with his career here, because he can just whittle away and end up a VFL player, or he can make a stand this year and actually affirm himself as that sort of second, third, most important person in that forward line. But like you said about, I really like the sort of analogy before about, reps and what they do with Whitlock as well. I mean, potentially he was just out of sync with being a forward, because he's been a defender for however many weeks. So they need to make a decision about where he's where they play him, and then allow him to, I guess, work his way back into wherever he settles into.
Interesting to see Zane Duursma not even named in emergency, but he has been named in the VFL squad.
What do you make of that situation?
Well, he's out of form, lost a lot of confidence, and they're not going to drop Zerha by the looks of it, so because they want to go the veteran. So they swapped it around. They got a defender in. I think who was it? Goda last week. He came in for his first game, so they put Zerha back forward, which I understood. He wasn't doing much in the back line, not enough anyway. I don't think to warrant to keep playing there. So, and his last game as a forward was that second half against Gold Coast, and I thought, well, why wouldn't you just leave him there? And they put him back there. So, give him another chance this week, and hopefully he can produce what he did in that Gold Coast game, going back a while now. And give us some score involvements, and some good forward craft, because he has played 150 games here, and that's the type of player we need to really step up for the last 8 weeks of the season, or 6 to 8 weeks of the season, because in the past year he generally does start the season pretty slow, and then he warms into it the second half of the year, and he finishes the year off quite strong. And like you said, we're kind of a bit past that. We need a good, solid year from players like that. We really, like you said, he looked like he was going to be an A-grade talent there for a period of time. Right now, he's about C-grade. And he's probably just struggling to keep his spot in the team. And if you want to take steps forward, and I understand last week was a bit of a shit show. Like the ball was moving, terribly. Like they didn't give him any chances, so it made it tough for him. But he's still got to give you more than what he has. I remember the last Friday night game, Siobhan, that we played at Marvel was Reece Shaw's first game as coach after Brad Scott. Yeah, and Cameron Zerha that day had 10 tackles. Yeah. And you can find that on YouTube if you ever look it up. And he was a completely different player that night. It was almost a coming out game for him.
Yep.
Yeah, and we've never seen it ever since. So yeah, we need a little bit more from the Bull.
Can I
Because
ask a question about Dersma? Because you touched on him before.
yeah,
Apparently, we've got that 2-year deal sitting in
I did
front of
see
him.
that.
What do you think will transpire here?
Depends on the rest of the year. If he's going to play in the VFL, I think he'll look at other options. Because I could sort of see that with someone like that. He's a young kid, a little bit, he could easily get swayed by another club. Apparently Essendon's not looking at him too closely right now. But another club could come in and sort of say, oh, he's 3 years. It could be St Kilda or something like that. I'm not too sure. Or he could go to West Coast in Western Australia with his brother and just help him out. But we've drafted a lot of the same forward. A lot of people are coming to chat asking for Oliver Griffin, who is a very similar player to him.
Yeah.
So he's a player, like if you lost Dersma, you probably got this kid that's just there in the wings as well. Which we drafted in the mid-season draft, and he's only 19 years old. So
and he looks good, doesn't he? He's got a lot
he
of
does look
potential
good.
and raw sort of talent and marking ability that Dersma showed in his first sort of few years, didn't he?
No, definitely. We'll be interested to see how Dersma goes tomorrow in the VFL. He gets an opportunity with Griffin, so it'll be interesting to see how they work together.
Yeah.
So that's he's certainly probably. I know he's only a young fella, and he'll get plenty of opportunities, but he's probably at the crossroads in his North Melbourne career right now, Dersma, because a lot of the first half of the year I thought he was outstanding, and I thought, give this guy a 4 or 5 year deal. It's fallen away pretty badly after that. Right now, you probably wouldn't even consider that from a list management perspective. But who knows? I'm not Brady Rawlings either, Siobhan. But in saying all that, we've probably delved through the team deep enough. Who's your potential match winner for tomorrow?
We just spent about 10 minutes talking about him, but I really feel like it's Zurhaar. I think with Curtis back in the team and hopefully Larky finding a little bit of form and Trembath recapturing that Richmond game and the way he sort of marked the ball in that aspect. I think Collingwood don't have a great backline, and without Darcy Moore there, I think it's an opportunity to exploit them. Personally, and this is no disrespect to Collingwood, but I think that they're a mediocre side. I think we actually can beat them. I don't think there's a lot on paper besides Dacos that makes me think they've got match winners or anyone that can really take the game away from us. And I think if our forward line is able to just get some of their spark and cohesion back, there's no reason why they can't get a score at Marvel, which they obviously love playing at, and against a side that doesn't have a similar to what we lack, like a real Billy Frampton doesn't put the sort of the fear of God into me. So I think there's an opportunity there for one or two of our forwards to get off the chain. With Curtis back, maybe it's his sort of screw you to the AFL game and he comes out and kicks 5, but I feel like it's Zurhaar's opportunity to bully them and to kick a bag. So I'll say Cam. What about you, Dean?
I'll go Paul Curtis. He'll be hungry after being screwed by the AFL. He'll want to prove a point. And like you said, the backline's not great. Dan Houston, Jesus Christ, I don't know what the hell's happened to him. He's a shocking player right now. He probably wouldn't get a game at us. And we offered 2 first rounders for him, which one of them would have been Finn O'Sullivan, Siobhan. So, luckily, our ignorance. Finally, our stupidity didn't work this time. So, he decided to go to Collingwood, which is fair enough. What about breakout game?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Is it too cheap to say Riley Hardiman?
No, definitely
I really feel like he didn't deserve to lose his place in the side, and I guess now with Goda out, he has an opportunity to shine, and I think he will. I really feel like at Marvel especially, him and Daniel can form a really nice combination. So hopeful it's not just McKercher that gives us a bit of drive out of there. And he's good overhead and he gives us a little bit of run. So I'll say Riley Hardiman.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'm going to go Zach Bench.
I like it.
he's a proactive player, and we don't have many of them right now. We seem to be going backwards a lot of the time we get a ball, whereas he looks to go forward. He's been quite good in the VFL, playing as a high half forward. I don't know if he plays a similar role, but we're crying out for a small forward, and he'll be desperate for an opportunity. So on the big Friday night lights, I'm going to go Zach Bench, Siobhan. So we'll see how we go. What about final prediction, Siobhan? What are you going for here?
Look, I said we'd win last week and I was sorely proven wrong. If you want me to be my brutal honesty and put my North cap down for a second, I do think Collingwood will win by, I'll say, 9 points. I think it'll be close, but I just don't trust us at the moment. I think that level of trust in coming into a game to win it just isn't there for me right now. But I think it'll be a good game of footy. It'll be one loss in the midfield, if you want me to be brutally honest here. I think besides Dacos, there's not a lot of fear in that group. I mean,
No.
Pendlebury and Sidebottom, they're wily old bastards, aren't they? And they just produce every single week. But there's no one there that I feel like can steal the game away from us if we can handle Dacos. So, and I think we've got threats that need to be held to account. I mean, I think LDU and Fino Sullivan and Sheasel and these guys have the ability to win a game of footy. And I'm really hopeful that this is the week where they take the game by the scruff of the neck like they had, earlier in the season. So I'll say that's where the game's won and lost, and I'm still predicting Collingwood, but I think it'll be a tight game throughout.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I'll go a 2-goal win. Yeah, look, I think with all the negativity that's come out, I think we'll put in a positive game style tomorrow. I think McKercher goes behind the ball tomorrow, and that makes a big difference. We've definitely got the forwards. I mean, that forward line is stacked. So if you give them a chance, they can certainly put on a score. That's for sure. So we'll have to wait and see if they change it up a little bit. But I'm going to go a 2-goal win. Darling, kick a few. Zach Bench to get a couple. Lucky to kick 3 straight or something like that. That'll be nice. A couple of players are under pump. I think they'll find a way. So I'll go a 3-goal win. All right, Siobhan, I'm going to go. Now I'm going to finish off with where are they now?
Yes.
So I've got a few players here. Now I'm going to go with one that's had a great career at North Melbourne, but finished his career at Collingwood, and that's Daniel Wells. Now, he stepped away from the public spotlight since retiring in 2019. He had a 17-year career. 243 games for the North Melbourne, 2 Sid Barker medals, 2011, 2003, AFL Goal of the Year in 2004 for his famous
Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan goal, widely regarded as one of the most naturally talented players to wear the royal blue and white. I can't disagree with that. And since retirement, returned to Collingwood Football Club in an off-field role, working within Indigenous community programs, assisting with recruiting and talent identification, helping develop the club's next-gen academy, particularly around Tennant Creek in the Northern Territory, and mentoring younger players as they transitioned into AFL. So he's still involved with football there for a period of time. So, I thought he was a very, very good player. But what's interesting, he's never mentioned with Brent Harvey when he left, Michael Ferrito, Drew Petrie, Nick Dalsano. When they were all told to give up, he also left that year. So he's the 5th player that decided to take up an offer from Collingwood. I think it was a 3-year offer from memory. So he's probably a forgotten player back then, Siobhan. But, he was a great player for North Melbourne there for a number of years, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Mercurial. And that's sort of natural talent that he obviously worked hard and but it's rare to find a talent like that, and was around for a very long time. I think injuries hampered him quite a bit in the back end of his career, but it's interesting. I didn't realize that he was actually and the 5th to depart the same year as the other sort of stalwarts and heroes of the club. Maybe because he left to go to a different club. He's not spoken about in the same
that's
light.
all. Yeah,
But I guess in the same breath, Drew Petrie did go to West Coast, but I think that was probably different circumstances, considering he was kind of told to leave the club. But no, he was a wonderful player to watch, silky smooth.
No, it definitely was. Kevin Hawthorne has come into the chat. Good morning from Lakeland, Florida. So
Beautiful.
He's all the way in the United States. So yeah, thanks for coming in there, Kevin. Now, next one, Scott Thompson. Now, he was the definition of a shin boner during his 12 seasons at North Melbourne. A 2013 Sid Barker medal shared with Daniel Wells and was named All-Australian in the same season. He played 241 games. He was a mature age recruit. I think he was already 21, 22 from Geelong's VFL team and went on to become one of the club's best key defenders. So after retiring at the end of 2019, he returned to Geelong region and moved into coaching. He joined the Geelong Cats AFLW coaching panel as a defensive coach, so passing on knowledge that made him one of the AFL's toughest one-on-one defenders. He's kept a pretty low public profile. More involved with local footy and spending more time with his family. But pretty good career, like 241 games from a late draft pick at 22 years old. He played in the club's prelim final and All-Australian and Sid Barker medalist. Were you a fan of Scott Thompson, Siobhan?
He was one of my favourite players, Dean. I've always loved a good key defender, and I'd give, like I said a few weeks ago, funny enough, I don't know how he got brought up, but I'd give a kidney to have him at the club at the moment. He was just Mr. Reliable. You didn't really speak about him much because every week he'd get the job done. I mean, he had that infamous moment with Barry Hall, which always makes me laugh when I look back at the footage of that one, but kind of says a lot about him. He's a niggler. He was a shin boner through and through, and absolutely love watching him play. And I love the story. I've always enjoyed watching mature age recruits to see what they do. And I mean, Tom Stewart's a great example of that, what you can find in bloody Geelong where they keep him hiding down there. But he was a great story and a great person. And I always look fondly at the times at the club where we had Spud Ferrito and Thompson and even Lockie Hansen down there. So reliable and shin boner, I think, is the best way to describe him.
No, it definitely was. I did actually see him when I went to the North Melbourne Geelong game. I did see him leaving the ground. So he went to that game. So he's obviously still living up in Geelong way. So, yeah, but definitely a very good player. I actually remember that Barry Hall incident. I can tell you the date of that, Siobhan. It was 22nd of May, 2010. The only reason I remember that is it is the day I got married. So,
oh, my Lord.
So that's how I remember it. I can remember it. Yeah, I remember hearing about that when I was probably about 20 beers in during the evening. So, yeah, and I did watch the footage that night. So, yeah, there you go. So, little things you remember sometimes. But next guy that was part of that key defensive post during that sort of era is the last player I'll go through is Robbie Tarrant. 174 games for North Melbourne from 2010 to 2021. 20 games for Richmond after that. 2016 Sid Barker medalist, North Melbourne vice captain. He represented Australia in the 2017 International Rules Series. It was picked 15 in the 2007 draft, but he had multiple shoulder reconstructions early in his career before reinventing himself from a key forward into an elite defender. That move proved career-defining, and he went on to become one of the competition's premier lockdown defenders. Probably a little bit stiff not to get a couple of Australians. There were a couple of good defenders back then, Darren Glass in particular from West Coast. So, but very underrated, very good footballer, wasn't he? Similar to Scott Thompson in that mould.
Absolutely, and I mean, he had another player where he started forward and then became a fantastic backman. Sad to see him go to Richmond because I always loved watching Robbie Tarrant. But someone again who was hampered by injuries, just couldn't get himself right. And then once he did, he was just again reliable, solid. You knew he'd take the best forward every week and just do the job without any fuss. Lovely sort of footballer. Always loved watching Robbie Tarrant, and like I said, I'd give anything to have someone like that at the club again. Great to watch.
Him and his brother had big arms, didn't they? Like they had big
Yes.
cannons. Yeah, they were huge. I don't know how they did it. It must have just been genetics half the time, but geez, they were units, that's for sure. Since retiring, he has transitioned into commercial real estate. Into early 2024, he joined Stonebridge Property Group as part of its national portfolio team in Melbourne, specialising in the sale of commercial investment properties such as childcare centres, medical facilities, fast food sites, and retail assets. So obviously, yeah, he's doing pretty good things off the football field. So that's really good to see. So, yeah, glad to hear that actually. But Siobhan, as always, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for your insights and previewing the Collingwood game and going through a few of the past players with me just then. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from you next week, and hopefully we can get the win tomorrow night.
Fingers crossed. I'm actually quite excited to be at the ground tomorrow. It'll be rocking. It'll be a bit like the Good Friday atmosphere, and hopefully a similar result.
Oh, look, that would be, yeah. I mean, that was pretty good for the fact that we overran a team, and you sort of like those come from behind wins. So it would be nice to get something similar like that, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's definitely a good challenge, as you know, and a good opportunity as well to showcase what we are capable of. Because we're on a Friday night, big lights, and we want to put in a performance where we don't just win from 10 goals to 8 or kick 8 goals for the game and lose 8 goals to 10. We want to see a good game tomorrow, so hopefully we can produce a 4-quarter performance on Friday night. We know the challenge is enormous against Collingwood at Marvel, but these are the sorts of games where young teams can learn a lot about themselves. So if they can bring pressure, contested intensity, we saw that in the third quarter against Port Adelaide for the entire. If they can bring that for the entire game, they'll give themselves every chance of making a real contest. So thanks again, Siobhan. And hopefully we can do this again next Thursday.
Absolutely, Dean. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone listening. Thanks for your continued support of the Hashtag Kangaroos podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave a rating, review, share the show with your fellow North Melbourne supporters. Until next time,